going to talk about the Southern Heritage Classic, which is in doubt as of today whether or not it'll be played because the game did not show up on the schedule of Tennessee State, which has been a long-time host of the game for more than 30 years. Their longtime opponent, Jackson State, as we all reported previously, they pulled out of future matchups with Tennessee State after the 2022 season. The last few years, Arkansas Pine Bluff has taken over as an opponent for Tennessee State. The game always played in Memphis every year at the Liberty Bowl. But this season, that game seems to be in doubt. Chris Stevens reported last week that the founder of the Southern Heritage Classic, Fred Jones, said once he saw that Tennessee State's schedule didn't include the game, he reached out to the school and Arkansas Pine Bluff to find out what was going on. Haven't heard back from either school just yet about the status of whether or not they're going to play in the game or not, what's going to happen to it. This is a pretty major thing that's going on right now. It's one of the longest running HBCU football classics in the country. For it possibly to go away because the main host of that school is not going to participate in it would be very sad. So fellas, what do you guys think about the Southern Heritage Classic not going away? Sorry, McKim shot.
First, to start it off with Jackson State. And I vividly recall how then President, Brenda Glover, was pretty adamant in indicating the impact of Jackson State not participating in that classic and the financial impact that it would have on the community. She's not the president there, right? There's an interim president there right now, if I'm not mistaken, right? I don't know what to make of this. I don't want to say it's the end of the Southern Heritage Classic, but if I'm Fred Jones, I think you need to just go ahead, brother, and just make this open. Make this an invite. If you want to say this classic and you want to continue making the Southern Heritage Classic a Nashville staple, a Memphis staple, then you're gonna have to go ahead and put some feelers out and look at some other HBCUs, some regional HBCU. I know UAPB's been in there. I don't know how that's worked out, but maybe you might want to look at Alcorn. Maybe you might want to look at, I don't know, Grambling Southern. Actually, Grambling did participate in there one year. I actually went to that game. They played Tennessee State back in, what year was that? 92, 93, somewhere. You're going to have to open it up because clearly relying upon Tennessee State, or back then when you had Jackson State and Tennessee State kind of tied in, it was just kind of a, it's that game between Jackson State and Tennessee State. There is a shift that's taking place right now in HBCU, or should I just say college athletics. And you're going to have to possibly make that shift with the rest of, follow that trend and make that shift. You're going to have to open this up and put some feelers out to see if there are other HBCUs who are interested in participating in that event.
So you think it's going to go the way of the Orange Blossom Classic? It doesn't have Florida A&M in it anymore?
Well, I mean, if it wouldn't be, look, I don't want to necessarily say the Orange Blossom Classic is the only, my point is that it wouldn't be the first time. I mean, there's some classic games out there that have been played that have featured, different HBCUs each year. The first Circle City Classic comes to mind. Circle City Classic featured HBCUs, year in, and different HBCUs year in and year out. Now, granted, it went away. There was a hiatus, and I think it's recently come back, and it's pretty much been, featured Division II schools. But hey, if you have to feature some Division II schools, if you have to maybe get Kentucky State and I don't know, Lane College, hey, you might want to try it. But I'm saying, man,
that doesn't work to me. I don't want to see that game.
I get it. It doesn't have the appeal. I get all that, Kendrick. I do. But look, it's either make the pivot or you don't make the pivot and you don't have a classic. So, pick your poison. And one isn't necessarily poisonous, but you're gonna have to make some moves.
Yeah, some of the commenters in our chat are saying, well, the price of business is going up. And one of the reasons why Jackson State pulled out of the game was because they felt like it wasn't profitable enough for them. Deion Sanders was on record saying that. Doing some research, like um, the contract between Jackson State and Tennessee State supplied each school $350,000 to participate in the game. But when you take on like the expenses and the travel and everything else, that may not be enough for a classic. I know Jackson and Tennessee is pretty close to each other in proximity, but when we talk about bringing the band and bringing the football team and the accommodations you got to make with hotels and lodging and food, like that stuff adds up. And granted, at the time, Jackson State, with Deion Sanders as coach, was a pretty high ticket, and so I would imagine, yeah, the price of business did go up, and I would imagine Fred Jones, a long-time promoter, had to think about that. So yeah, like the incentive got to be on the promotion team to want to make these schools play in this football game year in and year out, and not just have for the greater good of the community. Because what's the greater good of the community standpoint if the schools aren't really getting any benefit from it other than showing up? Chris Stevens, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think what Ken said is on the money. I mean, Jackson State, and as much as it would bring me great pleasure to blame this solely on Deion Sanders, I can't do that. And because Tennessee State, has, kind of moved away from that as well. And it's probably going to have to be a point where it does become an invite, and you're gonna have to, do the promotional legwork to make people care about this game again, especially if you're not going to have at least Tennessee State in there, because Tennessee State was, for the most part, carrying their freight. And even with Arkansas Pine Bluff filling the void the last couple of years, I mean, it was still a nicely attended ball game from what I could see. So I mean, the Southern Heritage Classic still has legs. The important part is now that the founder has to really make this thing, again, if it's got to be Lane versus Kentucky State until you can find a couple of D1 HBCUs willing to take a flyer on Memphis, so be it. But that's what it might have to be at this point.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It was just, I mean, it's unfortunate, but we're starting to see a lot less classics played across college football as a whole. Like, I think the last one standing, and you can't even call them classics because they're honestly conference games, are the Red River Shootout with Oklahoma and Texas, and of course the world's largest cocktail party with Georgia and Florida. Those are the only two I can think of that are still kind of considered classics, even though they're not really classics because those are conference games now. So, I mean, the classic is unfortunately, it's kind of gone the way of the dinosaur. I mean, HBCUs are still, holding their weight up, especially with the Bayou Classic and the MEAC Challenge, but we don't have the same classics as we used to have back in the day. I mean, there was the Circle City. There was actually a time when Delaware, because there was a rumor that Deshaun Jackson wants the DSU Norfolk State game to be played at Lincoln Financial Field. There was actually a time when Delaware State would play in Philadelphia every single year, once a year in the mid to late 1980s. So it just doesn't. I mean, back in the day, I mean, those were events, but now the way the college sports landscape has changed with respect to money and conference affiliations and different things of that nature, it's just not plausible anymore.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think, and what I'm about to say isn't anything new, and I'm sure everyone is aware of this, but this is a business. And for the record, I said it started with Jackson State. I'm not blaming Deion Sanders. That's not the point here. It started with that move in which the Southern Heritage Classic finds itself in this particular situation. But what I'm saying is that the landscape has completely changed just since then. NIL players are jumping and like, look, we've got players now who are playing schools who've literally been at 4 different schools in the last 4 years. I mean, think about that for a moment. That's just how huge the jump that we've witnessed just in the past 4 or 5 years. At the very least, they played at like 3 schools in the last 4 years. So to the Southern Heritage Classic, look, man, Fred Jones, you might need to ask FedEx for a little bit more money. You might need to go ahead and ask those local mom and pops for some more money, because at this point, you're going to have to pay a mint. And this just isn't an HBCU thing, because I live here in Dallas, in the Dallas area, and I know this very, very well. Now, granted, Grambling and PV, they still play here every year for the State Fair Classic. Do know that even Grambling and PV, as historic as that matchup is, at some point said, look, you're gonna have to make this worth our while. The city of Dallas, can't think of the classic, can't think of his name, but the owner of the State Fair Classic, look, they had to come up with more money. And this was due in large part to what Texas and Oklahoma did with the Red River Shootout, which was played every year at the Cotton Bowl. And even they said, look, we can get these crowds at our own individual stadiums, and we can just make this a home and home deal. You are going to have to pay us more money. And the benefit for Texas and OU, as is the case with the Classic between, just so you folks know, as is the case with Grambling and PV, the benefit of paying or playing that game in Dallas every year is that each school gets the payout every year, as opposed to having to play at a home and home. So imagine Grambling and Prairie View going home and home, and then, okay, you got PV coming to Grambling. Well, Grambling gets that revenue, but now Grambling's got to go to PV the next year. Grambling doesn't get any revenue. It's all about expenses, and PV keeps the revenue for the gate. That's the reason why Texas and OU are continuing to play this game home and home, because it's an annual paycheck, and it's a big paycheck too. So they made it clear, granted, we like to get that annual paycheck, but do know we have no problem moving this game home and home, because we can just get one big fat paycheck every other year, and we can just play this home and home, and, screw that. Think this ain't a business? Even the Cotton Bowl game that's played on New Year's, it's not even played at the Cotton Bowl. It's played at AT&T Stadium. Think about that. So it's all a business. The Cotton Bowl is not played in the Cotton Bowl. But it's all because of the money. It's about the money. It is a business. So to the Southern Heritage Classic people, look, man, tell FedEx to cut some more checks. You're going to get some more sponsorship money and make it worth these schools' while to come and play you. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I'm pretty certain Tennessee State and Jackson State would have no problem playing in the Southern Heritage Classic if you made it worth their while to come and play. Plain and simple.
So what would be worth their while to come play?
Then that is not for me to say. That is an AD question. I don't know what's worth their while, but I'm guessing $500,000 probably might be worth their while. I don't think too many schools are going to turn down $500,000, but just know, if you want these schools to come and play for you, you're going to have to pay them. Plain and simple. I don't know what that dollar figure is. It's not the same for each school, obviously, but you're going to have to make it worth their while to come and play.
Yeah, is there Hoffman, your thoughts on this about Bowie State playing in the State for the Southern Hemisphere Classic this year?
Jeremy on mute.
Oh, you're on mute.
Gosh, dog it. Oh man, I pulled a Kendrick. That's crazy.
Everything, anybody.
But that's my first one ever. So don't think that it's still 1,000,000 to 1. But anyway, yeah, ain't no team in the CIAA gonna play in that game. That's not gonna happen. We in North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland. That's not happening. So you can forget about a CIAA team being in it. Your only chance is like maybe Tuskegee, who travels very well. Miles, I'm not too sure how well Miles travels, but I know that their home games usually are well attended. Outside of that, I can't think of much, because who else you gonna get? Lincoln University of Missouri?
LU versus Mississippi Valley State. That is a money maker. Oh, it's going to
No,
rain.
it's not.
Woo!
Unless
Nobody
Jerry
making money off
Rice
that
and
game.
Willie Totten are playing in that game, that's
Oh
not going to sell
man, that
well
is hilarious.
That's not going to sell well at all. So, yeah, I don't know.
You know the best you could do, and I say this respectfully, because I understand regional matchups matter. You can't just pull any school from anywhere and try to make it work. I get it. You got to have the regional. What made the Southern Heritage Classic so unique for such a long time is because of the regional matchups. You had an in-state school in Tennessee State playing against a regional opponent. Jackson State was just a few hours down the road. Okay, now. Can you get that same type of cachet if you were to say you get UAPB and Valley or Alcorn? I don't know.
No, you wouldn't.
Maybe it's one of those things. Well, I was going to say, you might have to build up to it. Maybe it takes some years to do it. But
What would be the hook, though?
Huh?
Come see, what would be the hook, though? Like, how do you sell that game as a promoter?
What the hook going to be? Uh-oh.
I don't know.
Rappers, we're going to have y'all rappers go Gorilla. We're gonna bring Cardi B. We're gonna bring Flo Rida, somebody. You
can say Valley's got a 400 member marching band. I don't know.
I mean, and they'll go and
at the inauguration. That could be the
I was going to say it's clear they'll go anywhere. So I ain't playing. I'm just saying.
Okay, I'm just saying though. But
you can get Angelo Ball to do the national anthem.
Look, you're gonna have to.
I might swerve in that corner. Whoa. Hey, that'd be a good halftime show. I'm not gonna lie, that'd be a good halftime show.
So I'm saying, man, I don't know what the formula is. All I would just simply say this: if you want Tennessee State and Jackson State to stay in that classic, you're gonna have to pay. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. You're gonna have to make it worth their while. I'm pretty certain they're not against playing it. You just,
I mean, like Eddie George went out and said last year, like he really wants to play Jackson State, whether it be in a classic or some other type of scenario. But like he feels like those two schools need to play. So Fred Jones, the ball is in your court, bro. You gotta do something to save the game, man.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with him. That's right, that's the only matchup I want to see.
But Eddie George didn't completely finish that. I'd like to pay. I would like to play Jackson State, but not for anything. That's and that directive probably came from Mickey Allen.
And what makes it worse is that Eddie George saying that he wants to play Jackson State, it makes Jackson State's price go up. Mm-hmm. So you're gonna have to pay more out of pocket because he's saying that that's who he really wants to play. And now if you put him up against Mississippi Valley State or UAPB again, it's not as enticing. So you're gonna have to pay him more if you want. So it's a lose-lose situation. If you put him against somebody that's not Jackson State, you have to pay Tennessee State more. If you want Jackson State to be in the game, you have to play Jackson State more. So either way, you're gonna have to pay no matter what.
I mean, you got to do like a Howard or a Florida A&M, a Grambling, a Southern, some school like that.
Who gonna pay for Howard's traveling fees to get there?
Want people to go to the game, man. You got to think about that stuff.
All I will simply say is this: doesn't Tennessee State play North Dakota State next year?
Yep.
They played them this year too.
Yeah, at Nissan Stadium this year though.
They got home with them, yeah.
So the game is going to be at Nissan Stadium first, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah. it was at North Dakota. There was at North Dakota this year.
Oh, they already played.
Yeah, they played this year.
What was the turn? Was it a blowout?
Yeah,
of course it was.
Okay, that's right. That's right. Okay, so here is why I find that game. Just another side note. I'm really interested to see. I've always said this about North Dakota State. I would love to see North Dakota State play a game down south during the month of September. I don't know. It may not make a whole deal. It may not make a big deal of difference, but they always play in that damn dome. They play in that cold weather, but I would just love to see how they deal with all that humidity during the month of September. And so
against Tennessee State.
I just find that somewhat intriguing. There's a
don't.
part of me that just thinks that they'll get off that plane and they get out the airport and they get into that weather and be like, whoo.
You know what's funny about that? They just played Colorado this year. Imagine if they had came to Jackson in 22.
That's what I'm saying. I guess my point is that climate is not something that they're used to playing in. That humidity ain't no joke. And if you're not used to it, you're not used to it. It takes some getting used to. I just think that game might be one of those. I'm not saying that they're going to win it, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if the humidity plays a factor. I could be making this all up, but I've always wanted to say, how would North Dakota State play against I used to, play Jacksonville State somewhere down south during the month of September, and let's see how you do then. So that's just my. I know we're a long ways from there, but that will be one of the things that I will look forward to towards that game when we see them play next September.
Tennessee, North Dakota State, they did play in Tennessee last year in September against East Tennessee State, and they won.
Oh, did they?
Points.
Well, yes. See, I don't. By how much?
By 3 points.
See, I didn't say he was going to lose, but I know that humidity.
East Tennessee State was only 7-5 this year.
So I'm just saying, just something to keep in mind. I don't follow North Dakota State, obviously, but I'm just saying. But we'll see come September. Anyway, I didn't mean to get off point. Sorry.
I don't think they're gonna melt because they play a school in the South. That's still a really good football program.
They might.
You're gonna melt. That's funny.
I know, team.